Hello, BookTube. I haven't given you a capitalism update in a long while. I had a trip to the bookstore yesterday, uh, and I want to show you what I got. I spent some money, not nearly as much money as I would have. I get an employee discount at Barnes and Noble, and the employee discount is pretty generous. So I amass an armload of stuff, and then I bring it up to the registers, and it gets tallied, and my heart leaps into my throat, and then my discount is applied, and the tally just drops precipitously. That's a great feeling, great feeling. Uh, I want to show you what I got. You would think, with the way my 2020 has been going, that I would have spent all of my time in the mystery aisle, and that I would have some mysteries to show you. And I spent a lot of time in the mystery aisle at Barnes and Noble. I really did. It wasn't what I went for this time around. This time around. I made this trip to look at what this Barnes and Noble, the big Barnes and Noble at the Prudential Center in Boston, had in the way of Edgar Rice Burroughs, had in the way of Barsoom. Because me and a group of other booktubers, Scott at Book Invasion, Mike at Pints and Paperbacks, Matt, the infamous paperback junkie, Mark Richardson at Richardson Reads, and myself are all doing a Marsathon, hashtag Marsathon, for the rest of 2020. We're going to be reading the Barsoom, the Mars novels of John Carter of Mars, the Mars novels of Edgar Rice Burroughs. One book a month. We urge you to join us. These are not long books, so it's not that hard to do. And a lot of them are in public domain. I think probably all of them you could get for free. But the fact that there's a Marsathon uh, naturally served as the thinnest of excuses for me to go to the bookstore and indulge myself and see what stuff they might have, what editions they might have. I remembered distinctly that Fall River had a big hardcover, the first 5 John Carter novels that looked really good. I remember distinctly that Barnes & Noble had one of their faux leather-bound, those beautiful collector editions of John Carter of Mars that I think also had the first 5 books. Because the first 5 books are certainly in the public domain, so you're not risking anything, nor are you accruing any cost to reprint them, other than formatting. And I seem to remember also that at around the time when the ill-fated John Carter movie came out, starring Taylor Kitsch, uh, there were also really nice reprints of A Princess of Mars with the original artwork from the pulps and whatnot. In other words, I went to the science fiction aisle first, and I went expecting a bonanza of choices, and there was almost nothing. There was almost nothing. It was a very stark reminder of what shopping at a Barnes & Noble, at least right now, is like. Barnes & Noble made a decision about 10, 15 years ago to make a list of books on their own, of reprinted classics on their own. Barnes & Noble Classics, Barnes & Noble special paperback editions. They're fairly cheaply made. A lot of times they commission new work, new introductions, new translations even. Their translation of Herodotus is fantastic. The edition of Herodotus they make is fantastic. Um, but and that's great that Barnes and Noble would do that. That Barnes and Noble's always printed in one way or another, hardcover or paperback versions of canonical classics and stuff that's in the public domain. But around 10 or 15 years ago, Barnes and Noble made the corporate decision that they would also remove the backstock items of other versions of those books. In a move that I guess makes good business sense, but it's absolutely soulless. It's just a horrifying decision, horrifyingly anti-literary. What the bigwigs in New York wanted, obviously, was that if you go into Barnes & Noble looking for a copy of Mansfield Park, you should have only one thing in front of you. You can special order a Penguin Classic of Mansfield Park or an Oxford Board Classics of Mansfield Park. But if you want what should confront you right when you get there is just the Barnes & Noble edition. It's just a horrible way of owing your soul to the company store, and I had forgotten that. I'd forgotten that is still the Barnes & Noble approach. Who knows? Barnes & Noble just changed ownership, so that practice may change. I hope it does. But when I got to the science fiction aisle, there was only one Edgar Rice Burroughs of any kind, and it was a big fat volume of Mars novels, yes, but it was the Barnes & Noble edition, which is kind of ugly, and none of the others. I don't know if they're still available. I guess I can look around online or whatever. It seems to me that you shoot yourself in the foot if you're a bookstore and you make people look online for what they really want. Why would they come back? Why would I order it at the store except that I get a discount? But most people don't. But anyway, when I was done with that, I did go to the mystery aisle, and I was confronted with a gigantic number of choices, and I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, those of you who might wonder what I'm talking about, I have had a yen to read murder mysteries all year long. Since I came back, since the beginning, since January, I've just been gobbling down murder mysteries, new and old, new to me and unknown to me. And I saw all of the stuff that was in the mystery section, but I didn't know what to pick. I had no idea what to pick. So instead, I plunked for my usuals when I go to retail bookstores, which is mass market paperback, science fiction, and romance. I get a smattering of both of those, but I don't get anywhere near as much as I like. And so I went looking. I didn't find any mass market science fiction that I wanted. Precious little of it made any sense to me at all. But romances, I did. I found 3 romances, and I want to show them to you. The first one is by Sabrina Jeffries, who's fantastic. These are all 2020 releases, I think. And this is a book in the Duke dynasty, and it is called The Bachelor. And that is our cover. You discerning romance readers will recognize the cheekbones of Paul Marin, a very popular romance novel cover model. What have we got here? Lady Gwyn Drake has long protected her family's reputation by hiding an imprudent affair from her youth. But when her former suitor appears at Armitage Hall, manhandling the heiress and threatening to go public with her secrets, it's Gwyn who needs protecting. Her twin brother, Thorne, hires Joshua Wolfe, the estate's gamekeeper, to keep her safe in London during her debut. As a war hero, Joshua feels obligated to fulfill the assignment he has accepted, but as a man, it's a torment to be very close to the beauty he has fought to ignore. With handsome Joshua monitoring her every move, Gwyn would prefer to forget both the past and the parade of money-seeking bachelors at her coming out, but Joshua is unmoved by her attempts at flirtation, and the threat of blackmail still hangs over her. With danger closing in, Gwyn must decide which is the greater risk, deflecting a scoundrel's attempts to sabotage her, or revealing her whole heart to the rugged bodyguard she can't resist. And you're going to notice there's a theme here. The theme is not Paul Marin. I'm not quite that shallow. I'm close, but I'm not quite that shallow. No, the theme is Dukes. This is the Duke dynasty, and this next one is My Darling Duke by Stacey Reid, who is an author I don't think I've ever read before. So what is in store for me here? Miss Catherine Danvers has always been a wallflower. But now, with her family on the brink of financial ruin, she finds herself a desperate wallflower. To save her family, she'll do anything. Luckily, she has the perfect plan. I smell trouble. She'll impress the ton, that is the hoity-toity, the best people, high society, by simply announcing she's engaged to the reclusive and mysterious Duke of Thornton, Alexander Masters, and secures strong matches for her sisters. No one has heard from the Duke in years. She's just going to say she's engaged to him. Surely he'll never find out before her sister's wedding, and then she can go back to her own quiet life. That's not actually a bad plan, except you know the Duke's going to show up, and she's going to fall in love with him. Soon, though, everything is out of control. At first, it's just a few new ball gowns on the Duke's accounts. Then it's interviews with reporters eager for gossip. Before she knows it, Catherine has transformed herself into Kitty Danvers, charming and clever belle of the ton, with everyone eager to meet her thankfully absent fiancé. But when the enigmatic Alexander Masters suddenly arrives in the city, dashing and oh so angry, he demands retribution, except not in the way that Catherine expected. Now, tell me you wouldn't want to read that. What a story that sounds like. And then the next one, just to show that I said I wasn't quite that shallow, but I am still shallow. The next one is also a Paul Marin cover. There are those cheekbones. Those are 2 Paul Marin covers in one shopping expedition. This is Megan Frampton, who I love. I have a bunch of her books here. And this is a Hazards of Dukes novel, a little play on the Dukes of Hazzard. Those of you who were not raised in America, it was once upon a time the beloved 1970s TV show here in America, the Dukes of Hazzard, about 2 cousins who are in basically Appalachia. They're in a constant comic struggle with the law. Let's put it that way. And the law in this case is represented by Sheriff Roscoe P. Coltrane and his dog, a basset hound named Flash. I watched the Dukes of Hazzard every week. Of course, everybody in America did. And it never occurred to me at the time when I was watching it that I would ever have a Basset Hound. Never occurred to me at all. And I don't think the Dukes of Hazzard is ever going to be reborn. And I don't think nobody has TVs anymore. There's nothing. It's not like anybody's going to do reruns of the Dukes of Hazzard. I don't even know if reruns happen anymore. Once upon a time, they were commonplace, but I don't think it's going to happen anymore because the famous car from the show, the General Lee, has the Confederate bars and stars right on the hood. I don't think that would fly today. I don't think it would happen. It's too bad because the original show had some very charming writing in it and some terrific hammy comic acting. Sorrel Book, a fantastically trained actor, played Boss Hogg, the villain of the show, and did a fantastic job. He's just terrific all throughout. But so was almost everybody else. There were only a couple of people in the whole cast that had no comic timing at all. So let's see. Well, how did I get? Oh, the Hazards of Dukes. So this is Never Kiss a Duke. Sebastian, Duke of Hasford, has a title, wealth, privilege, and plenty of rakish charm. Until he discovers the only thing that truly belongs to him is his charm. An accident of birth has turned him into plain Mr. de Silva. Now, Sebastian is flummoxed as to what to do with his life, until he stumbles into a gambling den owned by Miss Ivy, a most fascinating young woman, who hires him on the spot. Working with a boss has never seemed so enticing. And you know how this is going to work out. He is going to end up getting the accident of birth that removes him from his aristocratic heritage is going to return him to his aristocratic heritage. That'll be the highlight of the book at the end, will be that, I know. 2 years ago, Ivy gambled everything that was precious to her and won. Now, the owners of London's most intriguing gambling house, Ivy is competent, assured, and measured until she meets Mr. de Silva, who stirs feelings she didn't realize she had. Can she keep her composure around her newest employee? There'll be something more going on there, too. So those were the 3 romances that I got today. Never Kiss a Duke, The Bachelor, which is in the Duke's dynasty, and My Darling Duke. So 3 Dukes in the romance section. But I wasn't done, of course, because I went to the periodical section. Another big attraction of the big, shiny Barnes & Noble superstores all across the country is that they have an enormous newsstand. It's actually a more potent attraction than you might at first think, because you'd be hard-pressed to find anything like that kind of newsstand anywhere else in the entire city of Boston. It's kind of the last stand of such things, where you can just browse hundreds and hundreds of magazines and decide an infinite variety, all into sections. Just amazing. So I always do that. I always go, I look at the monthly news magazines to see the back of the book, to see what books are reviewed in the back. And I look at the table of contents. I'm not one of those schmucks that stands there just reading the content. I look at the table of contents in those things for the back of the book, for the what the review section is like. And if it's popping with stuff, if it's full of stuff that I want to read, authors that I know, books that I've read or reviewed myself, then I'll just buy it. There wasn't anything like that this time around, but there was a perennial attraction of the magazine section, and that is science fiction, square-bound science fiction digests. There are 3 that this Barnes & Noble has. They have science fiction and fantasy, which is thick, and then they have Asimov's and Analog, which are a normal size, and I have read these things forever. They are just staples of my reading, just staples. And I was in luck, because yesterday there were 2 new issues. The new issues, these are the the March-April issues, had just come out. So there's Asimov's. There we go. That is a face. It's an astronomical feature with a face on the cover. Just a fantastic pulpy cover. And even more pulpy is Analog, which is celebrating its 90th anniversary by reverting to this kind of retro cover design. Just love it. Absolutely love it. Ordinarily, it looks indistinguishable to this. And you see, these science fiction digests, these magazines, are the last bit that's left of what was once an absolutely thriving science fiction industry, where new talents would be found, and where old talents could go to get a reliable pool payment or whatever. And you can see that in the lineups for these, except they're handled in completely different ways. In Asimov's, the head story there is by Nancy Kress, one of the greatest science fiction authors living today, and the biggest name by far in this lineup. But Analog decided to do something different with theirs. The story that they lead with is The House of Sticks by Derek Kunsken. And way down there in the fine print, you see Greg Benford, who's also a gigantic titan of modern science fiction. They decided to go a different way. It would have been predictable for them to highlight the Benford story in here, because he's an institution. But they didn't. They didn't do this. They didn't do the Nancy Kress version. I love that. I think that's fantastic. And we will see if maybe this reflects an editorial decision. I've often seen it to be true, especially in Analog. I've often seen it to be true that they will push the story that does end up being the best one in the issue. Like their editors, their editorial board, their team went through all the month's submissions, was setting up the table of contents and said, well, yes, we have a famous name, but the best story in the issue is this one, so we're going to lead with it. I've often seen that to be true. So one way or another, I will gobble these down. And that was my bookstore visit. I just thought you might be interested. So we have Asimov's and Analog. I strongly urge you, if you're interested in science fiction, I strongly urge you to pony up the money to subscribe to these things. The only reason that I don't is because I like finding them at a Barnes & Noble, but the magazines like this really like subscriptions because that gives them a bottom line of regular money coming in. Whereas somebody who shops on the stands could look at this issue and say, well, that doesn't look so good to me, and not get it. I don't know why anybody would do that. These things are reliably fantastic. And then 3 romance novels. So that was my bookstore visit yesterday. Was just to spend some money on capitalistic pursuit of more books that I do not need. I do not need them at all. I'm going to read these romances in between major works in the next week, just as palate cleansers, and then I will have to find room. I'll have to find room for them somewhere on this bookcase. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm looking at my romance bookcase right now, and I'm seeing just glancing 2 more Sabrina Jeffries. Look at that, huh? 2 more Sabrina Jeffries, Married to the Viscount and The Hellion in Her Bed. Okay, so who knows how many other Sabrina Jeffries are in here? I have 1 bookcase for romance novels, and it's pretty full, so I'm going to have to make some room. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But anyway, that was just a rambly video about buying stuff at a bookstore. I thought, if I can't share that with you, who can I share it with? But I'm going to go now because I'm pooped. But I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.